Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Katie Woods. I'm a library assistant at Foster City and the author of the novel White Wedding. I'm excited to be here tonight for a cook-along with Vasanti Bhadkamkar-Balan and to invite you to join SMCL on November 2nd for Girly Drinks with Mallory O'Meara. Your microphone will be turned off, but please feel free to turn on your video and to use the chat for questions and conversation. For those who'd like to access live closed captions for the event, click on CC and then show subtitle. All right. San Mateo County Libraries welcomes Vasanti Bhadkamkar-Balan, author of Authentic Indian Cooking with Your Instant Pot. Vasanti is a recipe developer, a food photographer, and the creator of the popular blog and Instagram account Signature Concoctions. She attended the Institute of Culinary Education in New York City and has been teaching cooking classes for more than a decade. She currently lives with her family right here on the peninsula, and it is my pleasure to introduce her to you tonight. Hello, Vasanti.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much. I am so excited and really thrilled to be doing this cook-along event with the San Mateo County Libraries. Hi, everyone. As Katie said, my name is Vasanti, and I am based right on the peninsula. I live in Foster City, and you all welcome to my kitchen today. I hope you're excited as much as I am to cook this recipe. With Diwali right around the corner, Diwali is the biggest Indian holiday. It's known as the Festival of Lights. I am going to be sharing a Diwali special treat, and it is called coconut and almond laddus. Coconut and almond laddus are essentially like your bliss balls. This recipe is a modern spin on a Diwali classic that I grew up eating. And I have taken my mom's recipe and switched with some of the ingredients, made it completely gluten-free. You can also make it vegan. It's a super flexible recipe. So follow along and find out how good it is. Before we jump on, I do want to talk a little bit about my cookbook that came along, that was launched earlier this year. And I'm gonna flash it real quick in front of my phone camera. This is my cookbook, and it is available at the San Mateo County Libraries. I believe there was a link on the registration that you can click and reserve a copy so you can get it and check it out. So please do get it, and I hope you love it. We'll get into the cookbook a little bit later, but right now, to start with, let's jump into making the recipe that we're gonna make today. So to start with, I'm just gonna go quickly over the ingredients. We are going to be starting with some warm milk. This is 1/4 of a cup of warm milk. I'm using a dairy-free almond milk, but like I said earlier, this recipe is completely flexible, so you can use whatever milk you have, and all you need is 1/4 of a cup. I warmed it in the microwave just for 20-25 seconds. That's all you need. And what we're gonna do is infuse it with saffron. So these are these delicate strands of saffron. And I'm just gonna sprinkle it right over the milk and let that infuse till we are ready to use. I might just make sure that they're completely submerged so that they do infuse the milk. All right, so while that happens, let's go over some of the other ingredients that we're gonna use for the recipe. What I have here is a cup of blanched almond flour. Now, again, like I said, this is a modern spin on one of my mom's classic Diwali recipes. So the original recipe is made with actually fine semolina. And instead of that, I am using almond flour, blanched almond flour that I always tend to keep handy in my refrigerator, in my freezer. But you can substitute, if you don't have blanched almond flour, you can use either almond meal. You can use the semolina, obviously, the classic ingredient. And then you can also get creative in the kitchen. You can use some other kind of flour that you may have. A good one that'll work very well, and that's very common in Indian sweet treats, is cashew flour. So that should work very well here as well. So that's one of our first ingredients. And what we're going to do is roast that almond flour with some butter. This is a tablespoon of butter for 1 cup of almond flour. And what we're going to do is toast it till it gets like light golden color. We need to toast it so that it comes together and it forms a cohesive mixture with the other ingredients. If you just don't toast it and use it right away without any toasting, then it is just going to be clumpy and your end product is not going to taste well. The toasting is also going to bring out the nuttiness, a nice nutty flavor. That's going to, again, make the laddus or the bliss balls very flavorful and aromatic. And as you start doing it in your stove, you're going to start experiencing that. So without getting too much into details, I'll let you guys experience that if you guys are actually cooking along, and then move to some of the other ingredients. So when we toast the flour, the almond flour, we are going to let it cool. And while that cools, we are going to make a nice mixture, a really sticky mixture of sugar and coconut. And what I have here is frozen coconut that I thawed. This is easily available in any of the Asian stores or in the Indian grocery stores that you'll find spread out across the peninsula and the Bay Area overall. But if you don't have this, or if you have the dried or the desiccated coconut, that will also work fine. What we will need to do is just use a little bit more sugar, just to make sure that the wet mixture doesn't dry out too much. We could also add additional butter to the sugar while it melts and make the recipe work. If anybody is using that, do make sure to call that out in the chat. So if you are making with that and cooking along, we will make sure to stop and check on that and suggest any tweaks that you might have to do along the way. Then after that, in that mixture, when we do it, we're going to add the milk as well. And then once it starts bubbling up, we're going to add the toasted almond flour. Then mix in some of these aromatics and nuts. So I have here, spices and aromatics. And for the spices, I have a 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom. And ground cardamom is very common again in all of the Indian cooking. You will find it in a lot of Indian sweet treats and dessert recipes. So we're going to use that as well, a very common ingredient. And then the other one that we're going to mix in at the last minute is some toasted pistachios. Again, like I said, this recipe is flexible. I am using toasted pistachios, but you could use some other nuts, toasted nuts that you may have. You can double down on the almond flavor and use some slivered toasted almonds. That would work fine too. Cashews would work great as well. And then the classic recipe is actually made with some raisins, golden raisins. I'm just not a fan of raisins, so that's why I used pistachios when I was developing this recipe. It's as simple as that, but you can by all means use whatever you want and make this your own signature concoction, just like I made this mine. So if we are good with all of the ingredients, let's get cracking on the recipe, shall we? Katie, are there any specific questions on the ingredients alone?
We have gotten a couple questions about ingredients. You've talked a little bit about where you get your ideas for ingredient replacements, that you kind of get to follow your passion for what tastes good. Before we get to some of the other questions, which we will definitely have time for, where else do you find your ideas for ingredient replacements or for variations for different dietary restrictions?
That's a great question. So honestly, like when I am looking to either put a modern spin on a recipe, reinvent a classic or something like that, I am definitely substituting some or a lot of ingredients in that recipe, in that classic recipe. And what I tend to look at is either the similarities or the contrasting aspects of different ingredients in terms of their texture or in terms of their flavors, or sometimes it could be just dietary restriction. Like when I was working on this recipe, I honestly was out of semolina flour. And it was just a simple thing. Like I didn't have that. So what could work? Semolina flour is really very, very similar to this almond flour, blanched almond flour, in terms of texture. And it's more bland, I would say. Almond flour actually has a nice, rich, nutty flavor and an aroma too. So I was like, oh, let me see if this works, and it worked very well in the recipe. So it's those kind of things that I'm always like looking for, just to see what will work, what will not work, play around in the kitchen and try something new.
Wonderful. I have a few other specific ingredient questions, if that's okay. If you have some time.
Please.
A guest tonight, a patron tonight, asked, can we use brown sugar? And also, how many laddus can we make with this recipe?
This is going to make about a dozen small ones, 1-inch laddus, or like if you were to do the typical size, the traditional size, it'll make about 6. So it's a small batch recipe. Again, you want to indulge a little bit in the festive season, but you don't want overindulgence either. So when I was trying to recreate my mom's recipe and reinvent it, I decided to make it small batch. So that's how many laddus it can make. And then the other question was about using brown sugar. And yes, absolutely, you can use brown sugar. Just know that depending on the light brown or the dark brown sugar, the color of the end product is going to change because it's going to be more intense with the dark brown with the molasses and the brown sugar. So that'll look different. But in terms of the flavor, it'll actually add a nice smokiness that brown sugar has. So I kind of love that idea. Whoever is using brown sugar, I think we would love to see how they turn out and how the flavor is. So I'm excited to find out. All right. If there are no more questions, then let's get cracking on the recipe.
There are a couple more, but I think we can keep going and we can get to them as we get to them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sounds great. So I'm going to start the flame on a medium. Hopefully you guys can see, but if it's not clear, it's a medium flame. And I am using a non-stick skillet. I'm using this non-stick skillet because we're going to first toast the almond flour. And it's a fine flour and I don't want to lose anything to the skillet. So a non-stick skillet is going to work very well. To start with, I'm going to melt the butter. I'm going to grab my handy spatula. And with the spatula, what I'm going to be doing is just swirling the butter in the pan so that it melts faster. Again, instead of butter, like I said, you can make this completely vegan by using regular oil or coconut oil. You can also use ghee. Again, I used butter for a couple different reasons. One, when I was trying to work on this recipe, I was out of ghee. I make my own ghee and I didn't have time to make my own at that time. And then the second thing is, I was also looking for this recipe to be super flexible. What is most common in every home? Butter. So that's why I was like, okay, I'm going to use butter. It's going to do the work of toasting the almond flour. So now that it's completely melted, I'm going to put the almond flour and try and stir it continuously for the first minute or so, just to make sure that it absorbs all of that butter. And then it'll continue to toast, and slowly you'll see that it's going to change color. And this should take about 3 to 4 minutes.
Wonderful.
Sorry, go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, there's just one question I think probably someone is cooking with this. Is rice flour okay?
Rice flour is too fine. I don't think that will work. But again, I haven't tested it out with rice flour. So it may work. You may have to toast it a little bit more. The other thing is, even if it works, your end product, the laddus, may become very dense. They're not going to be light and nutty. So that's one thing you definitely want to make sure that you go prepared, that it's not going to be like a nice light sort of laddu. It's going to be pretty dense, even if it works out. Wonderful. So just keep that in mind. And the other thing I'm thinking of, because it's so fine, rice flour, you may have to tweak the proportion. What we did was the proportion of almond flour to sugar to coconut is all 1 to 1 to 1. So that's where, because it's finer, it may change.
Do you have any suggestions for someone who might be using who is not using a nonstick skillet? Someone asked if they can bake the almond flour instead.
Yes, you could do that, but baking or roasting in the oven, you have to really watch it like a hawk, because if you do burn your almond flour, then it needs to go in trash. You cannot use it. It's going to spoil the flavor of the almond flour completely. But yes, that is possible. Totally possible.
Thank you so much. That's all for urgent, pressing questions right now.
Awesome. Okay. I can already see the flour changing color. I'm going to just give it like 30 seconds or so, but let me see if I can show you guys. Like, can you see there's a little brown in the middle? So it's already changing color, and this is really it. We don't need to toast it too much. Okay, there, that's the color. I'm going to turn my stove off. I don't want it to get burnt, but this looks very well done. And what I'm going to do is just set a plate and transfer this almond flour and let it hang out and cool off a little bit till we get the sticky mixture ready for the bliss balls or the laddus to come together. So that's about it. We're going to use the same pan. Again, keeping it easier for myself, for everyone else. One pan wonder, it should work. Again, starting the flame and taking it to medium, keeping it to medium. I am gonna start by adding the coconut. And that's a nice sizzle. It's the good fat from the coconut, frozen coconut sizzling. The next one we're gonna add is the sugar. And then the last one ingredient that goes in is the milk. And really what we need to do right now is just give it a good stir and combine it. And then the heat is going to do the rest of the job for us. You don't need to work too much on the mixture. But any like clumps in the coconut, you just want to try and break those with your spoon. So that it doesn't get clumpy when you make the balls, you know, that's all you're trying to do. So as you can see, I'm just using the spoon to break any lumps that were there. And I don't see them anymore. So this is when I'm gonna let it hang out and the heat do its thing. So it just needs to come to a bubble, which it already is actually. And then we need to let it bubble for about 2 minutes or so that the sugar melts completely. And this becomes a very sticky mixture. So the stickiness in the mixture, when you add the almond flour and the other 2 ingredients, that's what is going to make the balls come together. So that's why we wanted to really bubble up very well and make sure that the sugar is completely melted and the coconut is cooked a little bit. So we have a couple minutes here, Katie. If there are any additional questions, we could tackle those right now.
Yeah, I have some questions for you. I'd love to hear a little bit about, okay, this is a great question. If you had one weekend to cook any of the recipes from this book, what would you want to make?
Oh my gosh, that's a really cool question. There have been weekends when I've just done cooking. And if I were to cook from my cookbook, actually, I'm just gonna move this a little bit away from the flame so I can show you guys. So what I would start with is a nice dish for brunch on Saturday, and that would be this egg curry, anda curry. So you start by making this quick and easy brunch recipe with eggs, perfect for brunch on a Saturday. And then I would, what I would do is just throw some ingredients in the Instant Pot and make, and I'm trying to see if I can get the pages. So it's a pulled pork vindaloo tacos. You can, again, every recipe in my book has this variation box, and you can use one recipe to create multiple recipes. So what I would do on a Saturday afternoon after brunch is just throw all the ingredients for this into the Instant Pot, set it to a slow cook mode, and then go about with my Saturday, do all the things. And when I'm back home in the evening, this pulled pork would be ready. And you can use chicken, or you can use jackfruit, make it vegan. All of those ideas are in that variation box. And then on Sunday, I could, again, do a fish dish. One of my favorites is this mean moily. It's an elegant brunch dish with coconut milk, not too spicy. So do something like that. and then end the Sunday with a hearty, either one of these chicken curries or lamb curries, or like a rice dish, like a biryani or something like that. So hopefully that would be a good sort of menu for your entire weekend. And you can cook the book along with that as well. Thank you. That was a great question.
It sounds like a wonderful weekend.
I
Do
know.
we have time
weekend.
for another question, or things are bubbling?
This is bubbling very well. So it's time to turn the heat off. So I've turned it off, and we're going to add some of the other ingredients. First goes the toasted almond flour. Let's start mixing it. Then next is going to go the ground cardamom. And then last go the pistachios. Actually, I'm going to hang on for a second. I just want to make sure the cardamom is mixed properly. And it may look like it's dry, but it's pretty wet. And the balls are supposed to be soft to start with, and then they will harden up because of the sugar. So now that this is nicely mixed and looking all cohesive, I'm gonna add the pistachios. All right, so now that this is properly mixed, we need to let this mixture cool off, because we're going to use this mixture and then turn them into balls. So that I can cool it faster, I am going to, a second, so that this is easy for you guys to see. I'm just using the same plate again that I used for the almond flour, and transfer this mixture. And let's spread it a little so that it cools off a little bit faster with the increased surface area. So we have about 5 minutes, Katie, while this cools off. And I am happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yeah, we're getting some questions.
Okay.
There's a lot of good questions. What is the shelf life of this treat when they're done? How long will they last?
Perfect. Great question. So we are using some fresh ingredients here. One is the main thing, the coconut. It was fresh coconut, even if it's frozen and thawed, it is ultimately fresh coconut. So with that, I would keep them at a room temperature in an airtight container for not more than 48 hours, 2 days tops, because coconut can go really bad really quickly. And if your laddus start tasting sour instead of sweet, that's a problem. So that's when you don't want, you need to toss them. 48 hours is max, I would say. If you do want to increase its shelf life, you can pop them in the refrigerator. I would say they would be okay for up to 5 or 6 days. But again, coconut can go bad even under refrigeration. I've experienced that. So definitely make sure to taste it if it's beyond 5 days or so. Again, if it's sour, toss it. But for refrigerated laddus, you do want to bring them to room temperature for about 30 minutes or so on the counter. Or if you want to have them right away, they will taste very nice when warmed up too, you know? So you can obviously just pop them in the microwave about 10 seconds and enjoy warm with a dollop of ice cream or something like that. They'll go very well. So
that sounds delicious with some ice cream. Another question, and we're getting great questions about the Instant Pot as well, which we'll save for after this moment. But one other is, will there be a written version of this recipe available? I know that you sent out the ingredients, which is lovely. Will there be written directions?
There is a written direction already available on my blog. You can go to signatureconcoctions.com, and in the search bar, you can search for almond coconut laddus, and you should find it.
Fantastic. Do we have time for more questions? Are we on to the next step?
This is still warm, so
great. All right. Yeah. Here's we can pivot into this other fun question of, how has the Bay Area inspired your recipes and your cooking?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I've been living in the Bay Area for about 12 years now. I moved to Foster City in 2010. And ever since, like, I'm just in awe of some of the food innovation and the creativity that you can find at various restaurants here spread out across the Bay Area. So that's definitely one that I love to go try out new restaurants and draw inspirations from their food menus or the dishes that I would try. The other thing I feel is that the agriculture and the produce that we get, some of it is year-round at farmers markets and even at your grocery stores. Those are amazing. And I do love to check out the farmers markets for like getting seasonal inspirations for seasonal produce that you can find, and then come home and try and create something new. So like last year, in fall, I found I thought the acorn squash was really gorgeous. So I picked it up and I came home and I made one of a very like rustic pumpkin curry. I turned it and changed it up a little bit with the acorn squash. So it's a lot of these things that I kind of tend to like use for inspirations and coming up with like new ideas and new recipes and things like that. Thank you. That was a very nice question.
Well, all right.
Katie, I just need a split second. I think my daughter is back from school and she's unable to get in. I'll be right back. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Who among us wouldn't be cooking with family happening too, right? It's a real world cooking moment. Thank you everyone for continuing to place questions in the chat as well. Please do feel free to continue to ask any other questions you're curious about, even beyond just this recipe in the moment. We'll definitely have a little bit of time for any other questions too. Hopefully, we're getting some great ones already. But.
Yeah, okay, I am back. Sorry about that little bit of a detour, but I think this feels like cool enough. So we're ready to kind of shape them into the balls. Fantastic. So what I'm doing is just greasing my palms with some butter. And if you want to, the mixture is still pretty warm, but it's good enough to handle. So what I am doing is just bringing it together, press it. And this is the traditional way people in India do laddus. So. And there you have it. This is one of our first ones. I have a plate here, decorative plate. I'm going to start setting those into it. Now, I'm not going to make all of them for sure, but as you guys are rolling, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, feel free to add them. I'll roll a couple of them and then we could do a tasting.
Would you like some more questions as you're molding and rolling?
Yep.
Okay, great. Do you know, I think that maybe your ingredients list answered this question, but I want to make sure. Can someone use coconut flakes that are often used for cookies for this recipe?
No, they would be dried, so you won't be able to kind of use them. You do need that. You do need a little bit of a fine mixture. So what I would say is maybe you could pulse them in the food processor and then kind of use that along with the sugar to make it.
And do you know if this recipe would be okay for a diabetic?
Not with the regular sugar that I used for sure. I haven't tested it out with the monk fruit sugar that, looks, monk fruit sweetener that looks just like your regular sugar. But I believe on the package, I've seen that they would suggest 1-to-1. Like if you were to use 1 teaspoon of sugar, you use 1 teaspoon of monk fruit. So that's like sugar-free and that might work. Although I've never tested it, so I don't know if it melts the same way and all of that. So that's the one thing that I don't think with the regular sugar, with the ingredients in the recipe, that'll work.
Great. It looks like someone is interested in trying the monk fruit suggestion. So wonderful.
Yeah, you can find it in Costco or on Amazon. My husband tried it earlier this year and he loves it, but I do feel a little bit of a different taste. So I don't use it, but that's why I haven't tested out any recipes. But if it works out, then that would be great for a diabetic, for sure.
Are you all right if some of our questions sort of pivot into thinking about pressure cookers and Instant Pots?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple, so I'm going to just wash my hands so that I can then jump into the book and show something from the book too. So I'll be right back. All right. Okay. So let me grab my book and I am all ready for any questions about my book.
Fantastic. So when you moved to the United States, you brought your pressure cooker with you. Do you still have it somewhere? That's a pressure cooker.
Yes, I do have it still. I just left it as like, just for old time's sake. But I haven't used it in years after I got my Instant Pot.
Right, excellent. That slides very wonderfully into another question from a patron, which is, so one is, which Instant Pot do you recommend? There's so many to choose from.
Yes, there are a bunch of different models, and actually ever since I got mine is like really old. I got it back in 2015, so it's quite ancient now, but it works very well. So I'm still using it, and that's what I use to make the book. But it's a 6-quart Instant Pot that works very well for like a family of 3, 4. And it also works for like whipping up larger quantities of curries or like pulled pork recipe or something like that that is in the instant in my book. That's the standard or the medium size. And I think what I have is a 7-in-1 multi-function pot. But now there are so many. There's one model that you can control with your iPhone. Like it's an app on your phone and you can just control, you can stop it or do anything remotely while you're out too. So there are a lot of them. But what I would say is I would go with the medium. The 8-quart tends to be really large and it is okay for a larger family. It works very well for a family of 6 to 8. But for usual family size of 4, or even for 2 people, I think the 6-quart medium size works very well. There is another one that is the smallest size, 3-quart. Couple of my single friends have that, but know that the accessories that are available in the market, which is something like a steamer, an egg rack, there are some stackable insert pans and things like that. Those will not fit in, like they make the standard sizes of accessories for the 6-quart, not for the other 2, the 3-quart or the 8-quart. So I would recommend going with a 6-quart size. And then if you want to get fancy, obviously you can go for the one with the iPhone app or something like that. But a really basic one, I think that's available for $89.99, if I remember, on Amazon. That works for most of the recipes that you'll find either online or in my cookbook or even some of the other Instant Pot cookbooks that are out there.
Okay. And do you need an Instant Pot to make all of the dishes in this wonderful book?
I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. So no, the answer is no. The book is all about Instant Pot, and the way it came along is because the publisher checked out my like blog and my Instagram page and everything, and they thought I have the potential to write the cookbook. Great. But when we were finalizing the concept of the cookbook, what happened was that I was trying to come up with a concept that would align with my blogging philosophy, what my blog is all about. And that is about modernizing Indian food, making it fit the contemporary lifestyle that we have. And again, this is influenced by some of the training that I underwent at the Institute of Culinary Education. I learned techniques of fine cooking and applied those French cooking techniques to Indian cooking. So it was sort of modernizing Indian cooking, if you will, in a way. So what would be a good way to modernize Indian cooking than the Instant Pot, one of the trendiest gadgets that are out there, right? So that's how we ended up finalizing the Instant Pot as a concept. And again, there were some other things going on at that time too. We were in the middle of a pandemic. This is my pandemic baby. And when we were thinking of when the book actually hits the market, we should be out of the pandemic, or at least getting out. So people will be going back to work. People will need efficient, time-saving recipes, and the Instant Pot really comes to rescue for those things. It really makes making curries and elaborate Indian biryanis and things like that a breeze on a weeknight. So that was the whole concept behind going with the Instant Pot for the book. And that's when I converted so many of my stovetop recipes to the Instant Pot, which means they can be converted back. So by all means, you can use the ingredients and convert those back. So let's take the curries, for example. The ball curry, this is a recipe for meatballs in a spicy coconut curry. This recipe is actually a stovetop recipe. It's a family recipe from my husband's side. It's his grandma's recipe that was passed down to me. And I've really made it easy with the Instant Pot. But you can obviously saute. You can make the meatballs. That doesn't need Instant Pot. You can make the paste that needs a food processor. And then you can make the curry by sauteing the paste and then adding the meatballs and the water in your Dutch oven over the stove. All of the details are actually for using the various functions of the Instant Pot. So here we are, in this recipe, there's a poultry mode that gets used, but you don't have to use that. You just follow all the way up until the making of the paste and sauteing it and everything. And then the rest of the stuff gets done on the stove. So that's how the recipes can be easily converted by anyone, really.
Wonderful. I love that. I love that story. And I definitely feel the back into the world stress. And I'm so glad there's a book like this that can eliminate some of that stress and help us cook like nutritious, flavorful things more quickly when maybe it feels like somehow the days have gotten shorter. I mean, they've gotten shorter because it's winter, getting to be winter, but have actually somehow gotten shorter since COVID as well. So I think it's beautifully timed.
Yeah, thank you.
It's about 7:19. I don't know. Do you want to take one more question and then taste test, or how are you feeling on
we can take a couple more.
A couple more. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I'm obviously very eager for the moment of truth. All right. One question from a patron is, what is the proper way to toast spices in an Instant Pot?
All right. So I do want to call out that toasting in the Instant Pot is going to be a little tricky. You are going to use the saute function that is on your Instant Pot. And let me see if I can just quickly, so that's the saute function that you will use in the Instant Pot to toast it. Now you can control, once you turn it on, it turns to a high heat saute mode, like it's high heat. You can adjust it and turn it lower so you can see the light less turn on. That's what you want to use to toast your spices in the Instant Pot. But honestly, if I can just give my 2 cents, hang on 1 second. Okay, am I back on?
Yes, we can see the book and the
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. We're so good.
So honestly, just my 2 cents, just toast it on the stove where you can control the heat. You can turn it a little high up or you can turn it down. Another way, if you don't want to toast it over the stove, the oven works very well too. Again, it will be consistent at 300 degrees for like 8 to 10 minutes till you get like the aromas from the spices. The Instant Pot can be tricky, so play around with it.
Beautiful. I love that guide. I also love the use of the phone and being able to go explore your kitchen. That was wonderful.
Yeah, it works very well. Thank you.
In your book, you're getting other compliments on your kitchen also in the chat. Love your kitchen.
Thank you.
What are some of the main dishes or your favorite dishes in your book that don't contain cilantro or could be delicious without cilantro if someone is not fond of cilantro?
Oh yeah, I know. That's a question I get many times actually. I don't have that issue, but I have friends for whom like cilantro tastes like soap. And that can be so unpleasant. I'm so sorry about that because otherwise there are so many people who love cilantro and who can experience the flavor. But by all means, skip it in most of the recipes. In the book, you'll find it more as a garnish. There is one recipe, I think it's a dal recipe, where I have, it should be somewhere, but it calls for like making a paste with cilantro. It's a green paste. So you just, yeah, this one. So this makes, the paste is made with cilantro. So I would just substitute with, I think for an Indian recipe, parsley should really work well, because parsley is more so like lemony flavor. So that will work okay. But other than this recipe, there are no recipes that really call for cilantro to be used in the flavoring as an aromatic ingredient. So by all means, you can skip it as a garnish or use something else. I do use quite a bit of scallions in my garnishes as well. So you could substitute with scallions too, and get a milder onion flavor, but at the same time, add freshness to your dish. So hope that works. Hopefully that helps.
Wonderful, wonderful suggestions. I love that there's more to do than just eliminate. You can also add richness of other flavors in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the best part about cooking, because you can go along with the flow and come up with different ideas and create something new. You don't have to, it's not like baking where you have to stick to something. And if you miss an ingredient, oh my God, the recipe may not work.
Maybe just one last little question here, because you've already spoken about this a little bit, but do you have more you'd like to share about where you get your ingredients? You talked about the farmer's market, talked about these shops. I don't know if there's anything else you'd like to say about how you source your ingredients.
So one of the things that I do when I travel is go and check out the supermarkets in like various like places. So like earlier in summer, we were in Dublin in Ireland, and I just went, there was a supermarket right around the corner. So I just went and checked out for some local ingredients and things like that. So that's something I love to do when I travel, but that may not be everybody's thing to do when they are on a vacation. So I totally understand that. And that's when Amazon comes to rescue, right? Like you can literally find anything and everything today on Amazon. Like the trickiest of ingredients in like some of Indian cooking, there's an ingredient, the name literally translates to stone flour. And I couldn't find it in the Indian store, but I found it on Amazon. So I feel like you can find any ingredient on Amazon nowadays. So I definitely go check out on Amazon. And then, like I said, farmers markets for some seasonal produce. I like Whole Foods too. There's Costco when you want to buy in bulk. So for example, if I'm making saag paneer at home or teaching it in my cooking classes, I tend to get the organic spinach from Costco, because you get organic products for a good value and you get them for a larger quantity. So that comes in handy, especially when I'm cooking for a crowd or something like that. So those are all the places that I go to.
Wonderful. And then we have actually one last quick clarifying question. You mentioned that the cilantro was used in the dal recipe, that it's mainly used in that. Okay, great. Thank you. Just making
sure.
Yes.
It is used with coconut and made into a paste that is then used to flavor the dal.
Fantastic. Thank you. Someone was making sure we had the right one in mind. Awesome. Shall we have a moment of looking inside, taste testing? I don't know.
Yes.
And then we can say
These have been sitting in front of me. So I am going to pop them in my mouth. It's almost dinner time. So dessert first, right? Why not? So I'm going to pop one and let you guys know. Well, sorry. So it melts in the mouth. It has a nutty, rich flavor, obviously from the use of almond flour. And I'm sorry, I'm speaking with my mouth full, but it's really, really good. It is nicely sweet. You can obviously use more sugar and sweeten it up, but I tend to like it to this. It's not too sweet and it's not less sweet either. And then the bite into the pistachio and the hint of like cardamom, it brings me back home, where mom makes a similar thing for Diwali. So definitely putting me in a festive mood.
Wonderful. Thank you for letting us peer pressure you into chewing as you speak. But you're making me very hungry to try this when I go home for sure. So yes, thank you, Vasanti, for the wonderful conversation. Thank you everyone for joining us. Please check out the San Mateo County Library's upcoming author talks at smcl.org/author talks. We would also appreciate if you could tell us how SMCL did with this program at smcl.org/rate this event. Vasanti, do you have any last things you'd like to say before we officially sign off?
I'm just so thankful and grateful to be here, especially with the San Mateo County Libraries, the libraries that I have been going to for the last so many years that I've been living here in Foster City. Incredible opportunity to meet all of you. I hope you enjoyed this cook-along session. I do want to let you know that even if you didn't try the recipe cooked along today, you can obviously go back and try it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, vasanti@signatureconcoctions.com. That is my email. You can go to signatureconcoctions.com. It's my blog. I keep posting new recipes literally every week. And then you can also connect with me over social media, Facebook, Instagram, the usual stuff. All of them go by Signature Concoctions, one word. So hopefully that's easy for you to find me. Reach out to me. A lot of people reach out, ask questions as they try out the different recipes. And I make sure to get back and answer any questions that you could have. So hopefully you guys give this a try. You love the recipe. And then you try out more of my recipes. And then lastly, do check out the cookbook. It is available at the libraries. So reserve your copy today. And then when you get it, hopefully you can try some of the recipes and enjoy and make them for your family. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks again, Vasanti. And have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Farewell.
Bye.
Bye.